I'll be portraying 3 separate characters, 1 man and 2 women. 3 of the 14 interviews from the City of Hagerstown Arts and Entertainment District Storytelling Project from the past year. Between each of those characters. Oh, I forgot to ask everybody to mute. I need everybody to be on mute so that you'll be able to hear me. Thank you. Between each character, I'm going to turn my audio and my video off for 1 minute, just 1 minute between each portrayal, and stay right where you are. Don't move, because there's it's real quick, and there's an intro. I will introduce each character will introduce themselves, and you don't want to miss that part. So make sure you're there. And after the portrayals, there will be a Q&A session, and I'll come out of character to answer your questions. And I am asking that if you need to blank out your screen, that's fine. But if everybody would take a turn so that we have at least 1/3 of the audience visible to me while I'm telling stories, that's really helpful. Thank you. We have storytellers in the audience who certainly understand that. And then I just want to thank all of you for being here this evening. My name is Ron, and you want to know how I got to Hagerstown here. I was born 1954 to a single Black mom in the Benjamin Banneker housing project in Cumberland, Maryland. I was a tiny kid, especially back then, everybody's punching bag, till I learned to protect myself with my fists. Every sports team, every game, every activity, I was always put at the end of the line, smallest and the last. I had to fight for everything. Cumberland was all segregated then. George Washington Carver High School next door to Benjamin Banneker Housing Project, to keep us all contained in a couple square blocks. We didn't even have a basketball court till we got a new pastor at Metro AME, African Methodist Episcopal Church. And don't go out after dark, because the police wagon would pick you up, or the firefighters, and they'd call you by name. But I tried out a lot of different things. I was a C student in academics, but I was a good athlete in the arts. Oh, the Black Drum and Bugle Corps. I loved that marching band, and that was really important. It was a big deal to us kids for years. Springtime, just like now, didn't matter if it was a practice session or a full-blown parade. I just loved the music and the marching and the regalia and the body language. Black kids on the street, in the street, loud and proud. I tried drama in 11th grade at Allegheny High School. It was integrated by then. And they gave me a part. They made me the butler. 1972, one Black kid in the whole production, and they made me the butler. I didn't understand that. I was happy to be acting, but the butler? Damn, that kind of soured me on drama. Now, I really studied photography in high school. And then I studied with Art Smiley at his studio in Cumberland. And when he moved to Savannah, Georgia, I followed him, literally. Teach me. And he said, okay. And he taught me quite a bit in a short amount of time, both the art and the business. But he said he needed $1,000 a month for a year. And I didn't have that kind of money. So I went to DC and trained with image masters. I had to be in a different location every hour throughout Washington. You had to know the city to get around and be where you were supposed to be on time. But I did learn a lot there too. I'd go to Hagerstown, took pictures at the fairs and festivals, exhibited during Heritage Days on Washington Street, and here in Cumberland, or there in Cumberland for Canal Days. And in 1978, I opened a photography studio, my own, 2 years later in a better location on Baltimore Avenue in Cumberland. In Hagerstown, I'm a transplant. I moved here after I was incarcerated. My mom says, boy, why would you tell anybody that? Well, it's the facts.
Where'd you put the bag?
I need everybody to turn,
okay.
to put their mute button on, please. It's the facts. It's what it is. Mm-hmm. You might wonder about me. Maybe it'll help to give you a more realistic picture of what a man who's done time is like. And I'm not ashamed of it, really. I learned a lot. Not that I liked it. No, and it wasn't fair or equitable or justifiable, but whatever those words mean. Possession of marijuana, larceny. But I did grow up in there. I learned a lot. Survived 3 prison riots, starting at Patuxent Prison. I tell you my checkered past because the people around here will tell you if I don't. I had Crohn's disease when I was there, a mean intestinal disease, but they wouldn't treat it. And that cost me. I lost 70 pounds and I was never a big guy. Misdiagnosed. I remember lying in the infirmary. I kept passing out from the pain. Crohn's disease will kill you outside of prison. Laying in that infirmary, I thought I would die. When you're lying in a room of dying people, it's a sad, scary place. I admit to some animosity to the system. People like that I'm friendly and upbeat, but I can be impatient, cranky. Believe me, I can be irritable. But hey, I made something of myself. I'm a success. When I got out of prison, my life had changed. I learned some things. I needed a purpose. It was a long learning curve up to that point. They told me in prison, set goals, make a plan, make a difference. That's simple. Set goals, make a plan, make a difference. When I got serious about a purpose, I knew it had to be something that nobody else was doing here. And the gap I saw was history. African American history. I started reading in prison. Nobody educated me on African American history. There were educated people who told me the names of books I should read and places I should visit. And I read everything I could. I visited every historic site that I heard about. And I studied the history of Washington County, Allegheny County, and up into Pennsylvania. I could see what was needed for kids and adults to help people learn our Black history right here locally in Western Maryland. I set goals, I made a plan, and it took a while, took some time, but I believe I make a difference. For 25 years, I've done arts and history programs for children and adults, thousands. 1994, I joined the Chamber of Commerce. I was a JC back in high school, a junior chamber. And in prison, I was in a group of 30 JCs. I set up art galleries and multimedia art centers where I brought in artists for after school programs and photography shows for adults, studio space for all kinds of artists. We sold local crafts at the shop in Waynesboro and on Franklin Street in Hagerstown. There was no arts and entertainment district in Hagerstown then. But I opened the shop on Franklin Street because I was recruited to photograph and document local history by the first African American History Society. I was doing the School for the Arts on my own, but documenting historic sites, Black history, that was a collaboration. And I've seen history myself. 1995, Million Man March, Washington. I was there. I photographed Mr. Farrakhan. I was there for all three of those major marches. I'm proud of that. It took a long time, but 3 years ago, we got some historical markers up in the Black community, most of them right in the heart of the city, some markers around the county too. And springtime is the time of year when people get out to walk around and see them. I have a hope that every school child will someday visit and understand what went on in each place historically, how we lived. Set goals, make a plan, make a difference. What I do is stewardship. I learn and share information so people can make the best use of and protect our history and our artifacts. That almost 300-year-old cabin on Jonathan Street, sure, it once belonged to Jonathan Hager, founder of Hagerstown. The state of Maryland, Preservation Maryland, even used the growth rings on the logs to figure out where that timber came from, right on Antietam Creek. More important, that cabin is solid Black history, 200 years continuous Black ownership. Preservation Maryland owns the cabin now, but only because a policeman crashed his cruiser into it 3 years ago. My friend Richard lost his house, had to move. And it was totaled. And hell, the city just wanted to tear it down. It was a battle to get it in good hands then. But getting it preserved, now it's a certified archaeological site, being restored as we speak. Take a springtime walk and stop and see it. It's something else. I should tell you, I never made big money as a photographer. I keep myself together as a house painter. I paint buildings for groceries on the table and heat in my house. Photography and local history is my passion, and it's how I connect to the movers and shakers in the city. House painting pays the bills. Every cent I make, besides groceries and maintenance on a really basic place to live, goes back into community programs. If people know our history, that's the first step in changing the future. That's always been my goal, to make Black history visible locally. Take care of my mom. It's my priority now and my challenge. Mom says her mom lived to be 100 years and 9 months, and she will make it to 100 herself, at least. Well, she's not 90 yet, so we have some springtimes yet to share. And I have the house with her in Cumberland, so I have space to headquarter now. I'm not giving up on Hagerstown. Right now, it's African American history programs on Zoom, but I'll continue, I'll resurrect those art programs and history for children and adults once we have COVID beat. Really, we're in a kind of a springtime now, historically. Or there are still storms, high winds to come, but we can catch glimpses of the flowering head. Set goals, make a plan, and make a difference. That's what I live by now. Good evening. Thanks for inviting me to talk about my gallery. And thanks for sending some of those questions ahead of time. It helped me figure out what I want to say. You wanted to know how I came to be this eccentric art gallery owner in Hagerstown, Maryland. Well, complete candor, Interstate 81. That's the best thing about Hagerstown from my point of view. My clientele comes from 41 states. So far, I knew I would succeed, but I also knew I needed a national presence to do this work. Mine is a niche business. I specialize in works by African American artists, paintings, prints, sculptures. Candor again, this community was less than enthused when I showed up. Whites thought I was out of my mind, useless, irrelevant. And many native-born African Americans from Hagerstown were resentful, indignant that I was here. DC transplant, white European American woman selling Black art. Huh. These racial constructs are just that, you know, we made them up. The labels are actually most useful in analyzing cultural traditions rather than individual people. The labels we use with each other were invented to tell us who we're not. Identity is really about the traditions that feed our self-awareness. I'm a city girl. I grew up outside DC. Hagerstown's a small city, a pretty city. And there's an energy here that you just don't get outside of a city. Out-of-towners, my customers, white and Black, they think Hagerstown's a beautiful city, a safe, fine place to visit. Some of them think about moving here. And yet, a good percentage of Washington County thinks Hagerstown is dangerous. Aren't you afraid to be open, scared to be there so late? Why would I be scared? What is there to be scared of? I've been here 30 years, more than 25 years in the gallery. It depends. If I depended on Hagerstown for my primary income, I would have closed my doors a long time ago. You asked me about underutilized resources. We have parks, a university, an art museum, a world-class art museum. We should have many more small retail establishments, little niche markets, boutiques. I was assuming when I opened a gallery, we'd have poetry readings 2 or 3 times a week by this time. For the amount of tourism traffic that passes through this city, we are losing business not having the right attractions. That's the underutilized resource. The tourists that come downtown every week, they use the restaurants, but there's not much else here to hold them. Bookstores, people still read. We need one. A lot of my New York City clients came from the National Black Fine Arts Show for original African American art. The decade I participated, 1995 to 2005, it was the premier show for African American art in the US. And the first time we exhibited, Bob and me, my husband, it was only the 3rd year of the show. We got in a year early because of one of our artists. Every artist there at the show needed to be represented by a gallery, and the galleries were the vendors, so every artist had a gallery. Well, we knew an artist who needed a sponsor gallery, and he gave our contact information to the organizers, and they called. And so we got in a whole year before we thought we could, before we thought we'd be ready. And we did it. That artist was a former Redskin and a New York Jet. That was a long time ago, but that's how I met all those New York people, through the National Black Fine Arts Show. We were looking to succeed. I knew the art world. I don't mind small failures with a learning curve. That's how you get better, by making small mistakes. My artists say I'm fearless, but really, what do I have to lose? A little bit of money? I wasn't prepared financially or emotionally for that first show. I never questioned my abilities. It was the presentation that worried me. I knew the organizers were looking for the best, and I wasn't sure we were yet the best. That night, the night that first show closed, packing up after a long 3 days, a little punchy, exhausted, we're joking around, and the owner said something that made me say, "So, okay, we'll be back next year then." You know, I was pushing him, and he hemmed and hawed, and then he said, "Likely so. I like your diversity of product." Well, yeah, because not every household can afford thousands to invest in art. We always stocked a few quality reproductions and African crafts, did some framing for people, things like that. When I first discovered African American art, the work I saw just dazzled me. My dad took me to a Howard University faculty art show in the late 60s, and I was dazzled. There were 2 works in particular I remember that just jumped off the wall and grabbed me. When I started out to study this art, I didn't know anything. I sought out people that I respected who could teach me what they were willing to teach me. Now I get paid to do lectures and talks. Often I do it for free. Well, why wouldn't I? I'm building my own customer base, building an educated public who know good art. That's what I do. Early on, I kept hearing from Black artists how hard it was to get into mainstream galleries. Moving to Hagerstown was a deal I made with Bob, my husband. We wanted an affordable place to live and access to the outdoors. And within 90 minutes of Washington, D.C., that was the clincher, on the interstate too. The gallery came after we got here, listening to our friends being frustrated with big city galleries. One of my best advocates and teachers was Peggy Dolman. Do you know her? The beloved honorary curator of African American history in Maryland. Peggy would come Sundays after church and we'd talk for hours. She was almost a partner, helping me get established. She said she believed what I was doing was important, that it was right, and that I was good at it. That meant a lot to me. She thought it was really needed. We did gallery shows on civil rights. Peggy knew more about Black history in Maryland than anyone I ever met. I knew about civil rights nationally. I was in the movement from 1968 on. And Peggy appreciated that. She worked hard to introduce me to the African American community here. Washington County art teachers ignored me for years, but Peggy got me into the schools. Then she introduced me to Ruth Monroe at the community center, and Ruth would call and ask for history lessons for children or adults, or art programs for them. Peggy and her husband were patrons. None of my other local customers were born in Hagerstown, and Peggy knew everybody. Her moral support alone, oh, I was just happy being in her presence. You want to know how I came into my building, the storefront? Different story. I went looking for a slumlord that I could tolerate. And Vince was the most interesting of the bunch. The best stories were all about Vince, the most outrageous stories, and I can be outrageous myself, so I knew I wouldn't scare him off. Now, Vince wasn't used to big city girls, so I went in with a list of my demands, my non-negotiables. If you saw that first lease, every line is marked up because that's how I took it to him. We had a long and interesting history. Vince never bought art here. He wasn't about the art. That's not what he was interested in. He just admired the hard work. Vince liked hard workers. That's the only thing he respected. And he could see how hard Bob and I worked. There was no downtime. We just worked all the time. Somebody said, Vince said about me, she's playful, but she don't play. What a guy. Bob and me, we were lucky. He was a union steam fitter, Bob was. I didn't have to worry about basic living expenses, and I had the luxury of studying what I loved, experimenting. I was never concerned about what other people think. I knew that even those artists that had no name recognition yet would one day be famous. I could see how good they are. They were still good. Their work needed to be cherished and encouraged, not snapped up by some snooty gallery and exploited like a commodity. Not that we're lacking in customers with money, big money, white and Black collectors or patrons of Black art, and happy to pay to support those artists. Bob died in 2015. I wish he could have seen our 25th celebratory anniversary extravaganza for the gallery. We've kept most of our clients for years now. Collectors, some of them out of wall space, but they keep coming, especially for the shows. They don't buy anymore. They just come to visit. One of them called this week to check in the virus, I said, the gallery is fine and I'll survive. No matter what happens, I'll be fine. Unfortunately, the Black community is way overrepresented in casualties. The impact of this pandemic is heavy, heavy for African Americans. We have a long way to go for justice and equity. Change only comes about with discourse. Our civil rights show last time included artists genuinely reflecting the street. Civil rights shows have their own legs. The activists were here. There was genuine discourse. We partner with the local Boys and Girls Club, and they plan a Black Lives Matter project with the kids. And we show the kids art. This is how we counter the odd perception that there's no Black art, the perception that there's no art in Hagerstown. This work is not about me. The art sells itself. My job is encourage and educate the customers. I'm much more of a collector myself than a salesperson. In this industry, Black art, my marketing is different than most galleries. Hundreds of people bought their first original painting in the gallery, in our gallery. A lot of African Americans here have never been to a gallery. I want people to be comfortable. This is a no frills shop. I'm looking for unpretentious comfort. The art is always front and center. Sculptures large and small, paintings, prints, lots of color, all the way to black and white and sepia photographs, traditional handmade musical instruments, some wall art in frames. We do a lot of framing, but hung as is, a lot more, thumbtacked to the wall. All original fine art made by African Americans, Africans, and Caribbean artists, self-taught or salon trained. When artists gather here for Show It's Old Home Week, we built the gallery that I sought when I was young. I wanted somebody to show me how to spend my money on art and how to know, how to care for my art. That's what we do here now. Even collectors who won't buy anything this time, they're here for the artists, and the artists honor them, their patrons. Together, these people are my extended family. We're on this journey together. The ultimate destination for each of us is an urn or a hole in the ground. It's what happens before that that matters. The living, the process of communicating and connecting, sharing beauty. That's what matters. Good evening. My name is Zuni, and I call myself a diversity advocate. This is work I'm called to through my family history. I've been listening to my ancestors and their constant advice for years now, especially my great, 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 great grandmother, Caroline Branham, enslaved at Mount Vernon, house servant to George and Martha. Being enslaved apparently did not make her quiet. I live in Hagerstown, Maryland now, but I was born in Washington, D.C., moved to Montgomery County, and then Baltimore. I didn't want to stay in Baltimore after I retired. And Hagerstown is a welcoming, beautiful city. I have 3 sets of friends who've been bragging to me about this city for many years, finally took their advice and moved here 8 years ago. It is hard to get to Hagerstown from some places. I don't see my family much, 4 daughters and my grands. They say, Mama, it feels like we're going to Maine to ride over these mountains. It's so far. You'd think they were walking on foot, carrying backpacks and leading oxen, the way they talk. My favorite professional job of all time, long before I retired, was working as multicultural audience and development coordinator for Arena Stage, Washington. I couldn't believe someone would pay me to support 3 different stages in that theater. I listened to rehearsals, queried people on Capitol Hill, worked with Smithsonian staff and Native American elders. It's been years and many of those people have passed on now. Those were exciting times. I worked with the Afro-Asia Theater Group for a few years under the sponsorship of the DC Council, working on ways to help connect Black and Asian communities. Then we started a group, Painted Gourd, going to universities throughout the Northeast, giving lessons on Black and Native American history and documenting news stories we heard every place we went. Eventually, we were getting into sea stories. 17th century African American pirate communities. Who knew there was such a thing?
I think the word you're
Let me
looking
tell
for is
you.
nigger.
Listening to some of those stories could change your whole worldview. When I started traveling to do that work, I was not sure how important this work was. I thought, well, everybody knows about African American and Native American history. I was so wrong. I was listening to people everywhere we went who were hungry for this information. Well, mind, not
I'm hungry
everyone,
for your old pussy, my dear.
but enough that I began to understand how important this work is. And then I worked in radio under sponsorship of the DC Council, and then XM Radio came in and we were under them. I started Vital Signs after that, a health program with Kathy Hughes on Radio 1. Her company.
No one cares, Fanny. Show us your boobies.
Do you know Kathy Hughes? Her company is the largest Black-owned and operated broadcast company in the U.S. Kathy was the first Black woman to head a publicly traded corporation.
Shut the fuck up.
50-some stations, and Kathy has all kinds of awards. But back then, everything was touch and go. And when XM and DC government fell out over money,
don't mute me. Do not mute me.
Everyone lost out. I went on to be a historical tour guide at Mount Vernon. Very enjoyable job. Except I had no idea of the high feelings of people being a Black woman visible at these heights. Some people,
John, shut the fuck up.
Some very angry people were not happy to see me there. I got to the point where I just stopped talking to hostile white people on my tours. You know Snoopy? The dog from the funny
Habibi.
Yeah,
game.
I know Snoopy. Yeah, I know Snoopy.
Mm,
Snoopy.
quote,
Quote.
I have selective hearing disorder. I'm so
Oh,
sorry you weren't
no.
selected.
It's fine. It's fine.
Oh,
It's
nice.
fine.
Here in Hagerstown,
We
I
still
give
love you.
credit to the Historic Preservation
I
Committee.
can
They
still
do
mute.
a lot of work in the county and the city. Did you hear about that little cabin? Archaeological site right there on Jonathan Street in the heart of the Black community. It's more than 200 years, continuous
Damn, just like
Black
your age.
folks living there. Well, now it's asbestos, shingles. Well, we're on it now before it all turns to dust.
Yeah, soon you will. You know.
2 years ago, I decided to try my luck for a new committee related to government. Washington County Diversity and Inclusion Committee, first new committee in 30 years. We got started in the fall, and when the committee did a listening tour of the libraries, town mayors and their families generally attended. Methodist and Lutheran churches have participated and they're working on plans. I hope I am not letting down my helpers, my guardians and loquacious ancestors. I have work to get done before I leave this work. Earth as Zuni.
Honestly, yeah,
Heart
you do. You have to stay.
obstacles
You have to do
overcome or
stuff.
succumb
Finish
to.
your stuff.
Even
I
when we
respect.
fall, you have only two choices: kiss your wounds or kiss the next step on your journey. Both are appealing. Only one moves us forward.
Yes.
Shut the fuck up.
Amazing, Fanny. Now, could you please pop your pussy?
We have some horses. Fucking.
Amazing, Renee. I love it. Lovely. But on a real note, can one of y'all be the mother or dad I never had?
All right. Sorry about that. I'm not sure. Some people got in here and I had to kick them out. So I'm not sure exactly what happened there. I've had them reported to Zoom, so they'll be blocked out for any future time. So I'm not sure how they got in exactly. But anyways, I apologize for that, Fanny. Certainly, those are some great stories, and you know, I know all three people that you spoke of. One I haven't talked to in over 20 years. And it was kind of interesting because as soon as you started talking about her, the gallery owner, I knew exactly who it was. And, you know, that just kind of sounded just like her from, I used to hang out in her gallery all the time many, many years ago when we had a little advertising agency across the street. Well, I wanted to give you a time certainly to do some question and answers. So I'll let you know, anybody wants to jump on to ask a question, that would be great. So anybody can unmute and ask your question at this point. We'll just try not to talk over each other.
Okay, I will. Fanny, can you give us the names of the three people you portrayed? Except I'm not seeing Fanny anymore.
Yeah, I'm not seeing her either. Okay. Yeah, well, she comes back on, but I don't see her either. I don't know if she dropped out somehow or what.
I hope she went to take those bad kids by the ear and put them in the.
Oh my goodness. And it went all the way to about 7:30 before I heard that. And I just kept seeing people on mute. So I had because they'd jump on and jump off real quick and I wouldn't catch who it was because they would go from the top of the menu to the bottom. So I had to wait till they came on, click on them real quick before they unmuted and remove them.
Well, good job.
Well, I wish I would have caught it sooner. I didn't quite get what's going on there. First, I thought it was somebody who really had a question. And then next thing you know, it was just a constant.
They wrote things in the chat too.
How did they do that kind of thing, Richard, with, we had a password number?
Yeah, we did. I'm not sure exactly what happened. But now, like I said, now I know who they are because a report will be sent to me as well as to the people at Zoom to block them. The other thing I can think of is because we actually promote this online as well, it could have been anybody who happened across our Facebook page who just had nothing better to do tonight than to do that, which is absolutely amazing to me.
Well,
But-
I just want to thank Fanny so much. I'm so sorry that I didn't even know that I was one of the stories. And I really thank her for that. I'm sorry that that was the one where there was a lot of interruption. But, you know, it was wonderful. Everything I heard up till that point was just phenomenal. And I'm so sorry for her because as a storyteller and artist, those things really do, you know, they bother you. And I mean, you can't continue with the same, you know, spirit that you had. And I just really, I'm so sorry. I would love to have heard the story that she had, you know, written about our conversation, but I couldn't hear it. But it's I'll hear it again. This is not the last time, I'm sure. And I thank her, and I really, it's been wonderful. I was just thinking how great this evening is, and then I was shocked.
I really enjoyed it, and that just kind of went downhill from there. And it's
And can you
I mean,
tell us your name? The third, it's the third story.
The third story. My name is Zani Miller.
Oh, Sonny, yes,
Mata.
she did say that. That's right.
That's Zani. Yeah.
yeah, and I know the first story was about Ron Lytle, which is our chairman. So, and again, you know, I knew a lot of the stuff that was in there as well. But again, I think it's kind of the portrayal of the personality of the person as well that really that really impressed me, because I kind of felt like they were telling the story as well. So that was really, really amazing. And
impersonated them beautifully. Well, you saw the difference between the character of Ron and the character of the second person, whose name I still don't have, but they were entirely different personalities in her depiction. One of them was very smiley and cheerful. The other one was a little bit, you know, it was just very different, and that was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I know the second person, and I for the life of me can't remember her name offhand. It'll probably come to me at 4 o'clock in the morning when I'm lying in bed. But she's the owner of a gallery. It's actually, it was right across the street from the little place I used to have when I was a graphic designer way back in the late 1990s. And the name of the gallery is Just Looking Gallery. if you hadn't figured that out. And
Just looking gallery?
yeah, just looking, JUSTLOOKING. And I cannot for life of me remember her name. I can see her and her husband, who unfortunately passed away. And
Richard, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I texted Fanny. She's saying that she was one of those expelled and she cannot get back in.
that was probably
would love-
my fault. That's probably my fault when I was quickly trying to get rid of him. I might have hit her name
Expel someone, I
instead.
don't think they can get back in. So that's what's happening to Fanny, folks.
Oh,
Oh my gosh, this is so incredible. I'm so
Oh
sorry.
boy, it's so frustrating.
But it's-
I've heard of these things, but I've never actually witnessed it.
I think we just kind of text her, just love her up. You know, the things that we're saying now, we can say them to her through a
Yes.
call or, I mean, I could give you her phone number, but I'm afraid where that might go. You know what I mean?
no.
Oh, no,
Right, right.
no, but it's being
No,
recorded.
Yeah.
It's being recorded, so anything you say is worthwhile then for her to hear
Oh, yes, that's
later.
Very good. Thank you.
I think that lady, the gallery owner, gave a talk at the museum a few years ago. I remember her coming there, talking about her gallery.
Excuse me, Richard, Fanny wants
Yeah.
to know what you want her to do.
Okay.
To bring her
Um,
in via phone.
I just sent her an email and invite her back. Let's see if that'll work. Hopefully I didn't block her forever and ever from this particular meeting. But I would still love to get her back so she can answer some more questions. And at the bare minimum, hear all these wonderful accolades that she's
Okay, did you do
receiving.
that? He
as
sent you
well.
an email invitation. See if you're not blocked permanently, and if not, we can come in by phone and you can answer questions. Okay. She's gonna try.
Okay, good. Yeah, she must have got hit when I was furiously trying to get rid of those rude people. Yeah,
He
it's
was
amazing.
so rude.
Uh,
Oh, my goodness.
I can't, I mean, you know, I teach at a public school, and this is one of the reasons why we don't use Zoom, is because it's too easy for somebody to come in and do that. We use other ones that are a little more secure. We use like a Google Meets and a Microsoft Teams, because unfortunately Zoom doesn't quite have the level of security that some of those do. And this is exactly why, but it's never happened to me before. So I'm kind of shocked. So hopefully she'll be able to get back in. If not, maybe we can have her just join by phone somehow. Or we'll see.
Excuse me, Richard, she says it bounced her out again and she's gonna try to call in with her phone.
Okay, we'll see if that'll work. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Richard, why don't you make sure you save the chat for her? Because there are a lot of lovely things in the chat that I'm sure she would like to see.
I definitely will do that. Yes.
Yeah,
I'm
there are more
definitely gonna do
lovely
that.
things than rude ones. There are a few rude ones.
Does she
Oh,
get
there
blocked?
are?
Does she get blocked permanently now from other venues? From
No,
this?
no, just from coming back into this meeting, that's all.
I'm technically challenged. I don't know how this stuff works.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if I can actually re-invite her, and that's what I tried to do, but apparently that didn't work either. So it's just you just gotta love it. You gotta love it. You know, all it takes is a couple jerks to kind of ruin the whole thing for us. And that's what's really frustrating.
I think if Fanny could get in from a different email address, probably the address that she got in before, she probably will not be able to get into this meeting with that. But if she could get in on a different
Yeah. That might work. Might.
You was telling me I was expelled, I cannot come back. Yeah, once you're expelled, I don't think you can get back on that same.
Yeah, that was my mistake. I got a little happy on, getting rid of people because they were popping up. I think I had to eliminate 6 or 7 people was when it came down to, which was really frustrating.
But did you find out who was doing the hacking?
No idea. What'll happen is once I close the meeting, Zoom will send me a report of those who they were, and hopefully I'll be able to figure it out from them. But I think it doesn't happen until after I close out the meeting. Looks like Fanny may have joined us by her phone. Fanny, are you there?
Hiya.
Hi.
Yay.
Good job, Fanny. That was an intention.
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
Fanny.
Sorry
So
about that.
sorry.
And I think in the middle of me trying to rapidly get rid of those intruders, I hit you by mistake. So sorry
okay.
about that. But you've had a lot of wonderful comments here, and I like to have a few people get a chance to let you know how wonderful this was. The one thing I was trying to do is like I said, I knew all three people, but I can't for the life of me remember the name of the gallery owner because it's been 20 years since I've talked to her. What is her name? What is it?
Eileen.
Eileen, that's it. Okay, yeah, Eileen and Bob. Oh my goodness. I tell you, I was telling everybody the quick story. I used to own a graphic design firm across the street from them, and me and my partner would go over there and hang around in their gallery for hours upon hours and just laugh and laugh and laugh. And as soon as you started telling the story, I knew exactly who it was. And it's just you captured her personality, just that sense of her being. It was just, I know Ron and Eileen, fairly well. So it's like I definitely could feel, almost feel their presence there. So I was impressed by that. That was great. But I'm gonna let everybody else talk about how great you were too, or if they have any questions.
Okay.
Well, Fanny, I just want you to know that this is Zunny. I want you to know that I was surprised. I did not know I was tuning in to listen to a story about me. And I was so shocked. And then, that's when the unfortunate, rude interruptions began. But I want to thank you for even thinking of including me. And I'm sure had there not been those lewd remarks and all that, it would have been fabulous because the other two were absolutely fabulous. I learned things and feel things now about Ron that I never knew before. And it's an eye opener. It's really something. It also tells you a lot about how people express themselves about themselves. So it was fabulous. And I look forward to hearing that story about me some other time. But this was, the whole thing was just magic. Until that happened, it was magic.
Well, I cut it off early because obviously we needed to stop. So
I knew.
There's another, 3 minutes or so. So you'll hear it again.
I know. Thanks so much, Fanny. I appreciate it. It was beautiful.
Thank you. You were a great interview. I loved interviewing you, as you know, because I, called you 5 or 6 different times.
That's true, but I didn't know where it was going. Oh boy.
Fanny, this is Stash.
Hi, Stash.
Great job. You did a wonderful job.
Yes, she did.
Really good. And a lot of the comments that you'll see in the chat are more than I would say. I mean, not more than I would say, but they were just excellent comments. And I really enjoyed listening to it. It was as if I had heard some of those the very first time. And and we're both laughing because I have heard them before through your process.
I hope everybody knows Stash is my radio partner at talltales.enlightenradio.org. So some of these stories in process are there on the radio. Stash, I was going to ask you can you save the chat for me, or maybe Richard can save the chat?
Yeah, I'm recording this. I'm hoping it saves the chat. If not, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and see if I can just quickly do a copy and paste so I can keep it somewhere so you can see it. And I'll delete the fine work of those ladies and gentlemen who decided to drop in there.
Okay, I'm on my phone now, so I can't even see the chat. Hi, Gypsy. I saw you there for a second.
Hi. This was just wonderful, Fanny. Thank you so much for inviting us. I felt like I just had a visit with 3 different people. Wonderful. Thank you.
Well, that's great hearing from you because you are one of the most traveled story listeners that I know. Years and years.
Thank you.
Fanny, this is Renee.
Hi, Renee.
Able to be a part of this tonight. I actually got in late from work, and so some of you may have seen me eating the whole time. I was trying not to be so obvious, but I really did enjoy. It was like a dinner theater for me. Okay, I was eating as I was listening, and like the fortitude, and you're just, going forward with what you were doing anyway is really what you needed to do. And so I just want to thank you for, continuing through that. It's so important that people know to mute and all of that. Just
Let them take over.
still don't understand, even those who should sometimes be in a meeting, how important it is to mute. But thank you so much for.
Oh, I'm glad you made it. That was good.
Yes, thank you.
Fanny,
Thank you.
this is Solveig. I just wanted to say, having seen the earlier versions, what really struck me was how distinctly different each character was. That's it was as if you really embodied them with their characteristics, even the movement of the hand. Even I don't know if you studied that, but I felt that it was different for one person from another. So it was wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
Thank you. I thought I caught a glimpse of you, so I knew you were there in the audience.
I'm cheering, cheering you on, always cheering you on, because I'm one of your fans.
Thank you. There are 14 interviews, but I don't think I will anytime soon be able to do more than 3 at a time for exactly that reason. I don't think I can maintain 3 separate personalities in my head and body for that matter. So
That's very understandable. It's very hard to maintain.
Well, Susan Gordon and I saw Dan Hoyle in Jonesboro do 6 people on the stage for an hour. And it was, that's what inspired me to do the interview project in the first place, but it was awesome. Thank you for being here.
I think Patricia has a question. She has her hand up.
Hi, Patricia. I get to meet you finally.
She's muted.
Tell her you can't hear.
I'll see if I can get her to unmute.
Or just show her you can't, touch her ears and say, shake your head no. Maybe she'll.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, you didn't hear me?
No,
sorry, you were on mute.
Hi,
everybody. I just wanted to say hi to Fanny and thank her for the presentation. I said it felt like I was sitting at a fireside just having a chat with you. And all 3 characters were so distinctly different. You were just, your mannerisms and everything made me feel like I was talking to you just at a fireside chat, learning about 3 distinctly different characters. So I appreciate the intonation and the hand gestures and all the differences to show that distinction. Just a great performance. Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to working with you on the Juneteenth celebration and outreach. Or no, I'm sorry. You're not doing the publicity committee. The poetry book, yeah. Anthology.
No, program now for this Saturday. I hope you'll join us.
Okay. Yes, I will see you there.
Wonderful. Okay, you're wonderful. Hope to see you again.
All right. Well, it is just past 8 o'clock. And I know we try to keep these things to about an hour, but just so you know, we actually had 51 people here. And that doesn't
Wow.
include the 6 or 7 crashers. So those are 51
There
people who
were 6 or
legitimately,
7 crashes.
I think I ended up blocking 6 total.
Listening what?
Active.
How did you know? How did you know they were the ones? That's what amazes me.
Well, that's what took me a little while. What I do is I go look at participants and everybody else is muted. As soon as somebody unmuted and I heard them, I was able to click on them and get rid of them. But it took me a couple minutes and I just started watching, click, click, click. And that's how I ended up probably knocking Fanny out, is because I was trying to quickly get rid of them and just knock her out by mistake. So, you know, we live and learn, but that's the only way I knew, is because they would come on. At first I was just unmuting them. And then I realized that they weren't supposed to be here. Then I just started kicking them out. So,
Okay, thank you. Maybe I'll learn from that. I don't know.
you had to be pretty quick. You had to jump back and forth. But I finally figured it out. And like I said before, this is probably why our school doesn't use Zoom, is because it's way too easy to hack into it, apparently. And now I see, now that's true. I can imagine if I was in the middle of a class with my middle schoolers and somebody did that, that's really embarrassing, to say the least. Yeah. But again, I want to thank Fanny. This is fabulous, and again, I really enjoyed it. You know, the time just went by so quick. I hardly even realized what was going on. So I certainly do appreciate that, and appreciate everybody showing up. Please stop by and see some of our others. We have them up on Facebook for the African American Historical Association. Look us up, and we have all kinds of programs coming up the next month and a half.
I will be at as many as I can make it to, Richard.
I know we have a lot here. We're going to slow down once June hits. I'm working on some other programs a little later on from up here in Pennsylvania as well. Trying to get maybe even a face-to-face program or two set up once this whole thing's done. It'd be nice to see people again rather than little squares on my screen.
Yes. Okay, well,
thank you very much.
Thank
you, everybody.
Can I thank some people? Can I thank some people?
Yes, of course, please.
I need to thank the city of Hagerstown and Kitty Clark, who's the community events coordinator who got me involved in this project in the first place. And thanks to the Maryland State Arts Council, because they funded the whole project. And of course, I'm grateful for that.
Wonderful.
So thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you to
thank you.
the 3 people who appeared tonight. I'm grateful for their interviews, and Richard for coordinating all of it. Thank you.
Ron did most of it. All I did was did the you know, the technology part, and even that we struggled with, but we made it through, which is good. But thanks everybody for being patient, and especially during that 5 minutes of a hijacking of our program.
Take care, everybody. Happy Easter.
Take care. Thank you.
Talk to you tomorrow, Fanny.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye. See you. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good job, Richard.
Thank you. Well,
that must have been difficult, because they kept talking and yet their microphones had a line in them. And so I couldn't figure out what was going on.
Well, what happened is what I started to get smart, and all I had to do is wait for the microphones that popped up as not muted, and then they would talk, and I knew who they were. So next time they popped up, I clicked on them as quick as possible.
So other than clicking on them, do you do something that says go away? I mean, in essence?
Yeah. What I do is I click on it, and then it gives me the option of removing them from the meeting. And then banning them permanently from coming back into this meeting. And then what I do is I had it set up that Zoom will send me a report of those that were knocked off.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
And then, I mean, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to get for that, but at least I'll be able to see, and I'll see that I knocked Fanny off by accident. So that was, you know, I just got a little happy there clicking it, but it's it took a little while to figure out who they were, but
Well,
once
it's
I
a
did,
shame. Some people have nothing better to do with their time.
I know. You know, try to do something nice, and somebody's always got to mess it
Yeah.
up. But I thank everybody for being so patient with that. Until
Yeah,
it
she
took- it
she
took me a
was
little-
amazing.
It took me a little.
Kept her mind on what she was doing through all of that. Gee whiz.
That was impressive because it took me a little while because I was sitting there listening to her and I just heard these little clicks every once in a while, just like one or two words, and I'd look, what is going on? Then I'd look in I have a little thing, I'd click on the participants and I'd see the same 3 or 4 names pop up, and I'm like, you know, and they weren't there at the beginning of the meeting. They came in somewhere probably halfway through, and then it was just, I figured out then what was happening.
Bunch of kids, I guess. Well,
yeah.
all right. Well,